Really, throughout the country, the county courthouses serve as signature pieces of a local history. The courthouses are frequently the most beautiful and iconic structures in the county. And in restoring them and using them, these county judges are really helping us tell the story of Arkansas. They are authentic, and so they are an important piece of our historic fabric.
These are the single building that just about anybody in a county is going to have some interaction with at some point during their life, whether it's paying taxes or getting a marriage license or going to trial. So communities tend to identify with these buildings, and if you look at the county judge's stationery from most of these places, they're always going to include a picture of that county courthouse, whether it was built in 1901 or whether it was built in 1941. You know, that is the identity of the county.
The counties in our state are really diverse. We have some that are growing in population, we have some that are losing population, we have some counties with 2 courthouses. The challenges for the county to maintain and to continue using those buildings is pretty substantial depending on what county you're in. So I think we try to look at each situation individually because every building is different and every county has a different situation too.
With any historic building, you know, there are always going to be issues. You know, they're going to get older. There's always issues of, you know, the cost of maintenance and upkeep and things like that. So every building, you know, might be endangered to a degree at some point, but there's always going to be a constituency of people who are going to be supportive of maintaining and keeping those historic buildings in service for future generations.
I would like to have seen it. I know it must have been something.
Yeah, I think the name Arkansas City, you know, speaks volumes in and of itself.
There was a lot of commerce back in the 20s and stuff on that river, and it was all right downtown here at Kate Adams in Arkansas City. I think it was twice a week a paddle wheel boat named Kate Adams. They made 2 trips a week from Memphis to here and back to Memphis and right back. And cotton was loaded on down here, timber was loaded on down here. And it was just a real busy place at one time. I think it had like 10 or 12 hotels and a couple of theaters.
When I was a kid growing up here in the early 50s, the downtown area was pretty much still intact. All the buildings were there. We had 2 restaurants, a dry goods store, which was called a wet and dry goods store because you had all the dry goods for clothing and stuff like that, and they also had a liquor store there. And had, like I said, a couple of restaurants and a bank and 2 or 3 service stations, 3 grocery stores, and it was an absolutely wonderful place to grow up. I often tell people I really lived a truthful, idyllic life here in Arkansas City of Opie Taylor and the Andy Griffith Show, because that's the way life was. My dad's office here in the courthouse, he was a sheriff and collector. My mother worked in the collector's office. Truthfully, this was my life as a young person growing up, and the courthouse was very much part of it because my mom and dad both worked long hours, and if I wasn't hanging out on the farm with my grandpa, well, I was here at the courthouse with them.
Courthouse was built in 1900. It survived a lot of things, the 27 flood. Water was just up under this floor here. And they was able to get all the records and things like that downstairs up here. The levee is about a quarter of a mile. You'd almost throw a rock to it from here. And then on the other side of that was the Mississippi River. But then in 27, when the water receded, well, lo and behold, the river had taken another course, and it was a few miles out there. So a combination of the flood and the river moving was pretty well putting a nail in the coffin on Arkansas City. It started going down fast then.
Only time we'd get to come to Arkansas City in the old days was to pay our taxes once a year, and that was a big adventure, so the whole family would come over. And Miss Dorothy worked in the collector's office, and she gave me a piece of candy, and she'd get me up on her knee, and she would bounce me up and down. And I remember asking my dad when we left, I said, "Are we kin to them folks?" And when I got grown, I thought that's the way all elected officials ought to be. They ought to feel like they're part of the family. That's the way Arkansas City, the town, makes you feel. They just open up their arms and hearts to you. Is that right? You make pear preserves out? Well, I got out here helping folks one time, and I had a pole and I knocked them out. One of them pears hit me on top of the head. I thought they were going to take me to the hospital. Man, that thing break your neck when it gets out of there.
Old Robert Sanders was up under that tree. He said, "Shake my some pears there." About like that, he top of the head and knocked you down.
Ah, man. In the bigger towns, you know, you speak to somebody on the street and they kind of look the other way. And here, they hug your neck and ask you how your mama is. And then you ask them about their kids. Y'all be careful, Warren, okay? Love y'all. Y'all take care of it, okay? And good luck on your revival, okay? I don't know if I get to make it or not, but thanks for inviting me, okay? Love y'all. See y'all. Okay, bye-bye. Robert Moore, a good buddy of mine, and we were looking at restoring buildings. He loves history, and I do too, and his wife, Beverly, really appreciates history. So it started out with the old school next door, built in 1905. Robert came to me and we talked about saving the old school. They'd moved in a new school and it was about to fall down. So we went together and got a grant from Historic Preservation to put a roof on it. Because in Arkansas, if you let the water get in, it won't be there long. We saved that building, and after I'd been here about 10 years as judge, I said, you know, I think I've improved some things, roads and things, but what would I be ashamed I didn't try to do when I leave? And I thought of this courthouse. It was really in bad disrepair. It was 1903, hadn't had anything done. Back in the 60s, lowered the ceilings. It's just a whole different ballgame. We went over to look at Arkadelphia at their courthouse. They had a tornado a few years before that, and they were wrestling with destroying the courthouse, you know, just bulldoze that and build a new one. And there was quite a bit of controversy there, and they decided finally to go ahead and restore that building. The quorum court and all the county officials, we went over and all voted and got the quorum court to vote to investigate that and what it would cost. And then after we found that, it was my part to get a half-cent sales tax passed. I rode a bicycle when I ran for office 20-something years ago, and I still ride the same bicycle in parades. So I had to get on my bicycle and pedal and sell this tax. So we sold the tax and got it passed.
The county judge then, Mark McElroy, took the lead in promoting an 8-cent sales tax. And the people of this pretty impoverished county believed in the history and the location of what Arkansas City means to the county. And the county voted, I believe, about 60% in favor of taxing themselves with an 8-cent sales tax. Well, that generated about $3 million that was used in the renovation and restoration of the two buildings. The original courthouse standing behind us here was brought back to its original grandeur of the time of its construction.
Old buildings are funny to start with. They have their own character. And you've got to kind of marry into these buildings, and you got to watch what it's telling you. You got to watch what it's saying. And I think I do a pretty good job there. Of course, it was before my time that the buildings were restored, but I think there's somewhere in the tune of about $3.5 million put in these buildings. That's a lot of money. You've got to make sure that that investment is taken care of and do what it's necessary around these buildings and the grounds to keep it looking good. And we just want to make it a showpiece for the people, not only in the Desha County, but anybody else that wants to come in it. And we have a lot of people traveling through this area that has heard about these old courthouses. And they'll come and I'll be sitting in my office down there and there'll be people out there snapping pictures and, and just amazed. And then I welcome them in. I love to give tours of this place. I like to show it off, just, be bragging on us down here. I love to tell people the stories about the old courthouse. And we got to keep it looking that way where people will continue coming. And that's my job, to keep these buildings up so that one of these days when I get ready, I'm going to pass on a good rounded building to someone else.
We have this history being right here on the levee. The levee's only, I can take a rock and hit the levee from here. There's so much history in this old building in itself, built in 1900, and they hauled old brick from the old hotels that burnt down during the saloon days and built a foundation for this courthouse. This one's especially isolated because we have larger towns that over the years have fought to try to relocate the courthouse because it's really not that convenient. I tell people say, I went through Arkansas City the other day. I said, no, you didn't. You went there and turned around and came back because you're at the end of the road. But with these old buildings and all the history, but sometimes you want to go back on the slow road and say, hey, let's look back in time where it was a lot simpler, when people would come to the courthouse and bring you some soup that they made at home, or maybe to borrow the phone. We had some people here that still don't have telephones that come by and need to use a phone to call their family. But if these walls could talk, and there's, a lot of it would be grief and sorrow, I guess. But then no telling how many weddings, and things like that. When this history is gone and, everybody's just kind of a throwaway society. Oh, this is outdated and obsolete. And what they used to say here said, well, it's so inconvenient. People have to drive over here. When I passed the tax, that was arguments that I had. They said, well, it's just out of the way. We need to tear that one down and build a new one in town. And yeah, it would probably have been cheaper. But when you take something like this out of a community, it's gone. I really believe if this courthouse had left Arkansas City, that the rest of it wouldn't be far behind, because this is the cornerstone that holds it together. And this is the center of everything, just like the people that come down the road, want to stop in and just use the phone, or just stop by here to say hi or pick some pears. I always think of that trip that we did. Of course, it's about 15 miles, and back 50 years ago when I was a kid, that seemed like a vacation. We're going to pay the taxes. And my grandpa said, I hope we got enough. And we get here, and people like Miss Dorothy Moore that made us feel welcome. And that's one thing that I told my staff when I came here. I said, we can't always please these people. No matter what you do, you need to try. But at least we need to make them feel like when they leave, that I want them to say, are we part of that family? Are they kin to us? This is our courthouse, not my courthouse, not whoever the judge is or whoever the judge will be, or the county clerk or the sheriff. It's the people's building, and they're just kind enough to let us stay in it for a little while.
I think it looks great.
Yeah.
As far as the clock tower goes.
I was looking at it from a distance coming in. It really just looks fantastic.
People that it was up so high, a lot of people didn't realize how bad it was. Mm-hmm. We had holes in the metal where enabled water to get in and rotted the wood on the clock tower. Mm-hmm. But now they got all that sealed off, and I think that pretty much seals the deal as far as the restoration of the courthouse.
I think so. That was sort of the last piece of the puzzle. And then remember, we also changed out the beam that was holding up the old bell.
Yeah.
It had rotted, and we've been trying for years.
That bell weighed what?
About 2,000 pounds.
Yeah. Brass bell.
Cast brass bell. Came from Maryland. In fact, the way we found the weight was we contacted the manufacturer. They're still in business.
Calhoun County Courthouse is a very special place. As we've been walking over this, we've totally restored this inside and out.
What we're doing now is sort of the capstone project. It reflects, it's a capstone figuratively and literally. It's the highest point on the building, and it really represents the last phase of the restoration master plan, and that's dealing with the clock tower.
Historical things are special to me, and I have people ask me, when are y'all gonna build a new courthouse? I said, I don't want a new courthouse. I mean, we've got a nice courthouse, and we're finally getting it restored, so it's just like a new one. So, I mean, I'm very proud of our courthouse and what we've got here in Calhoun County. Although what we're doing today on the restoration of the clock tower probably cost as much as the entire courthouse.
Yeah, I think the whole courthouse was like $80,000 when it was built, something like that. One of the unique things about this building, it has its original bronze bell that was placed there in 1910 on an old wooden structure, and that structure had deteriorated to the point that it was concerned that it might not be safe anymore. So part of this last grant application was to not only replace the roof and repair some of the damaged decorative metal cornice work around the clock tower, but to also completely replace that beam that supported the bell. And that bell was about 2,000 pounds, and the company that manufactured the bell originally is still in business. And so we contacted them, gave them the dimensions of it, and they were able to tell us how much it weighed so that we would know what sort of structure we needed to put up there. The restoration master plan that we developed on this building, just basically we surveyed the existing building, we measured it, we photographed it, we researched it, who built it, when it was built, how much it cost, the style it was. Everything there was to know about the building we had to reconstruct because there were no drawings or anything like that available to us. But after that was done, we surveyed the building and identified areas of work that needed to be addressed in the future to, number one, mitigate future deterioration of the courthouse, and then number two, restoring it. And it's a great joy to me to be able to actually see the restoration master plan followed in the 25 years since it was done, and basically culminating and being concluded this year. I think what people appreciate the most is that there have been a series of county judges that have understood the significance of this courthouse, both architecturally and as an asset in the community. It's part of the fabric of the community. And like any fabric that's 100 years old, it gets a little worn. And I think that Calhoun County has been very fortunate that they've had a series of county judges that have wanted to preserve that heritage, even though maybe these days it's not used as much by the general public as it was in days past, but people are proud of it. They've seen the work that's been going on. It's an asset to the community, something they take a lot of pride in.
Calhoun County is the smallest populated county in the state. One of the smallest landmass in the state, but we are the smallest populated. We have one red light in the county. Very rural, but very special place. And the people before me, they had done a good job as far as preserving the courthouse, and I just wanted to continue that. I don't want a new courthouse, I want an old courthouse that looks new. I'm all about restoring old things. In 2006, we came in and we added, that was not original, but we added the chair rails, and we painted the ceilings, the walls. The railing was a little loose, and we put that back intact. And downstairs, the entire interior of the courthouse has been repainted, and we didn't replace the lumber, the wood, but we did refinish it and preserve it. But I'm relieved to know that it's pretty much been restored, and we can kick back and enjoy what we've got now. The people of the county have something to be proud of.
It's very exciting and rewarding to see something that you have such fond memories of being restored. At the same time though, it's a little bit sad because we've essentially completed the last piece of the restoration work. However, with any old building, I have an old home that I've restored, as soon as you think you're done, something else will come up that you'll need to work on. So I'm hopeful and appreciative of the fact that I've been able to be involved in this for almost my entire professional career to date. And it's just been a pleasure to see something that's so prominent and so beloved in this community brought back to the point where it was when it was built, and see the pride of the community in their very unique courthouse.
The counties, in my view, had less money now than they used to have. And they used to build a really fine, high-quality building. And most of the courthouses are good quality construction. But over the last 30 or 40 years, many of the courthouses have suffered from neglect or lack of funding. And I'm not sure exactly what the dynamic is that's caused that, but that's my observation. That most county courthouses are really strapped for maintenance funds. And that's where the County Courthouse Grant Program has been so well received by those counties that need the help.
In 2012, we entertained the idea and took before some citizens the idea of possibly building a new courthouse because of the issues that we have with the current courthouse. And there was such an outcry that the Quorum Court decided not to pursue initiative to build a courthouse and a jail on some property the county has over on the north side of town. So at that time we made a commitment to keep this county courthouse here where its present location is, and to maintain it and preserve it, restore it, and make it usable to provide the services we have to our citizens here. And in doing so, we have to go through the process of obtaining the funds through grants that we can get.
The money that is granted through the Department of Arkansas Heritage, we take a good chunk of that and give it to the County Courthouse program. It is a very popular program amongst the council members that sit on the Natural and Cultural Resources Council. They want the Department of Arkansas Heritage to continue to support the County Courthouse program. I think it is pretty universally appreciated and loved.
Madison County is a rural county, small county. The funding from our county general fund is not sufficient enough to do the repairs that we need to do right now. So we're doing all we can through applying through Heritage Commissions for grants, preservation grants, and repair grants to correct that problem of our roof, which is leaking pretty badly right now.
Well, with the county courthouse grants, a lot of what we're addressing is really serious maintenance issues. We're dealing with roof replacement. We're looking at replacing heating units or things that make the building safe and comfortable. Problems with water getting in the building, whether it be through the masonry or through the roof or around the windows. Water infiltration is a big problem. And a lot of this is deferred maintenance issues. And oftentimes that is because the county just doesn't have the funds to maintain the buildings as they should be. So that's where we try to step in and help augment what they have for their maintenance budget, so that the goal, as far as we're concerned, is to keep the county in the building with county services. Because we know if they are in the building and using it, it's going to be maintained. And if the building is abandoned, it's not going to be long before it's going to go downhill and probably won't be there.
As we walk into this room, you'll see what the effects of water infiltration do to plasterized roofing or ceiling and walls. And these records have to be maintained indefinitely. There are no time frame where you can discard them. They're kept permanently, and this is where they're stored currently. In the future, we hope to be able to move them to a different location in the building. Take a look at these walls and the ceiling where water infiltration is showing some of its major effects. This is what happens when you get enough infiltration to actually soak up the plaster finish on the inside. This is one of the worst rooms in the courthouse, although there's more than one. There's several rooms in the courthouse showing damage. In this wall area right here with the old radiator heater, you can see what kind of damage actually comes from water infiltration. And this is something we're working hard through the heritage grants to correct.
The grant program started in 1989, so it was still relatively new when I first started, March of 1997. And in those days, I could look back in some of the old records, there would be these restoration committees or commissions, and they were these group of local citizens. And these local citizens were driving the Save the Courthouse project. And so, you know, I kind of saw the struggle that they were going through, and I'm hearing their stories, and then eventually evolved where the county judges became more involved, and they had to address these other issues that they were dealing with. So it's just, you know, kind of understanding their stories and how invested they were. These county judges know that they have a lot of things to do. They got roads and bridges and museums. They got to coordinate with the sheriff and the clerk. And then they have a historic building to take care of. And so if they're like me, when I first started with preservation, they're a beginner. They don't know where to start with taking care of this historic building. So they have to learn to trust me and my colleagues to give them adequate guidance and hopefully funding so that they can preserve and take care of their historic courthouse.
I would say that the county courthouse is probably the most important hub of service to the citizens of the county, and the fact that it's where all of the branches of government for the county, practically all of them, we do have the sheriff's office, which has been removed, but most all of the offices are in the county courthouse. It's a central location in the county. It serves the people well that live on the outskirts of the county and come in, and as I said before, it has an identity and it's part of our heritage. Hope to make it part of our continued heritage to our children as we go forth from this and our grandchildren. Something that they can be proud of, a place they can focus on and identify as Madison County.
So these courthouses were the centerpieces of the community, often architecturally, but they were also the centers of local government, the courts, the political center of the community, the legal center of the community. That's often where the jails were and the sheriff was. It was where people went to take care of their county business. And one of the things that comes out of that is they were also repositories for the records that were kept by the county. And oftentimes, these records are the only copies that are left of those records. So these are primary sources, which are kind of the gold standard for historians and researchers. This is primary source material. And they're so important because if they haven't been kept in some other format, they are the only copy of that information that's available.
We actually have what we call, I guess, the original deed, the original order that was approved when this courthouse, when I guess they were in the talks of building this present courthouse. And I actually have that. We keep it on record here. It's very old and frail, but we keep it kind of safe. But I pulled it out here today, and it looks like on the 27th day of October 1939, there was an order that was entered into the court to build the courthouse because some of the federal programs are available through the WPA and some of Roosevelt's programs at that time. And I think the county at that time was in need of a new courthouse, a new facility, and so they wanted to take advantage of that opportunity. Amazingly, this courthouse, I think, cost less than $100,000 when it was built, a little bit over $90,000, and about half of that was put up by the county, and then the other half was put up through the federal government. So that was a great opportunity for them at that time. There's been some courthouse fires and some different things over the years. Unfortunately, a couple of these fires was during the Civil War. And historians will tell you that that was done on purpose a lot of times during the Civil War to destroy the courthouses, the county government, and destroy the records. And it's really unfortunate, you know, in today's time, because there's just nothing we can do about it. You know, once those records are gone, they're gone.
The county was responsible for keeping all kinds of records, you know, whether they be school records or land records, which are the most important, and they had to be accessible to people, so they had to keep them there in the building. Some of the older ones from the late 1800s, early 1900s, they're large, thick, leather-bound books, large. And you open them up and you look at the handwriting, the pen and ink handwriting that's done, and it just looks like calligraphy. It's so beautiful, so attractive. They're almost like works of art.
We do have some records that go back to 1860, and I can't explain that because the last courthouse fire was around 1901, 1902, and so most of our records just go back to 1901, but we do have some 1860 records, but we have a lot of the old probate records. We have the real estate tax records. Also, we have marriage records, and this book here is the oldest marriage book that we've got, and it goes back to 1901. And we get into these actually a lot, but I guess the first marriage we've got here is August 24th, 1901, the first one recorded. Anything prior to that got destroyed in the fire. Something that I always thought was neat was people used to register their pistols. And so we've got a pistol registry here. At one time, you can see all the folks that own pistols in Madison County would come in and register their pistols here. And this book, as you can tell, is very old.
So there are all these different record books. A lot of them are obsolete because the county no longer serves those functions, and those records end up in some interesting places. I've seen them in the clock tower, I've seen them in the basements, I've seen them in the dumpster. And sometimes people will come and collect them, and the County Historical Society ends up with them. There are some counties that have actually built new additions to their courthouses to accommodate old county records. Every county deals with them differently, so we've seen some really nice archives where the records are maintained well and they're available to everyone. And other times, again, there's just no room and there's no funding to be able to accommodate that. You don't have the space for that. So they end up being put in secondary spaces, attics, closets, basements, which aren't the best environment for old county records. As primary resources for historians, they really need to be kept because they are available nowhere else.
We've got our own Mason-Dixon line here in Mississippi County. I don't know exactly where it is. It seems to move with the people that you talk to. We are 50 miles long north to south. We're not quite half that east to west. We're riverbound on the east side, and then we stretch probably 20 miles across the north side, east to west. But yes, there is a perceived north-south issue. Me personally, I'm from the west side of the lake, so I try to avoid as much of that as I can. But it comes back to this dual county seat issue. And Osceola truly was the original county seat. I don't think anybody disputes that. Then the Legislative Act and the establishment of the 2nd Judicial District, the Chickasaba District in 1901, the establishment of Blytheville as a 2nd county seat. That's all we, the current residents, have ever known is the 2 county seats. We are one of 10 dual county seats in the state of Arkansas. Dual county seats primarily came about in the early 1900s because, for the most part, of territorial restrictions, travel restrictions. One of our former county collectors has a long time history. Her great-great-grandfather was one of our early county tax collectors. And it was a family story of their family that it took their great-great-granddad 3 days of horseback riding to travel the county to collect the county taxes. That was quite a ride, a 20-25 mile day of horseback riding, pretty long day. So in the case of Mississippi County, we ended up with a county seat up in the north end in Blytheville and a county seat in the south end in Osceola. And we have two corresponding judicial districts, the Chickasaba district in Blytheville and the Seminole district down in Osceola, and a courthouse serving each district and each county seat.
The last couple of years we've had a heated family squabble within the county about our courthouses. You know, Mississippi County is one of 10 counties that's got 2 courthouses. And so there's been some argument as to whether or not we need to keep them both open. They're both old. Both of them are in quite a bit disrepair, but they're local landmarks.
They are wanting to build a new modern courthouse in Blytheville and tear this one down, and we don't want to give it up. I think the courthouse is the part of downtown that we don't ever want to lose, because it's what keeps downtown as part of the city of Osceola. If we lose the courthouse, we lose our history, we lose our identity.
You know, as buildings get older, you have common everyday bills with any structure, even if it's brand new. There's always something to be done. There's always maintenance to be incurred. There's always monthly bills that have to be taken care of. But as they get older, especially when they reach in the 100-year stage, the maintenance problems become almost unending. We've recently been awarded a $70,000 grant to work on the drainage on a roof that we worked on in 1994 and spent over $300,000 on. And talking about Osceola, needed a new HVAC system, air conditioning, heater system. Seemed like it's just never ending, one problem after the other. You fix this problem today for $300,000, the next one's $67,000, the next one's $56,000, and it never quits. That's Osceola. We've got the exact same situation, if not worse, with a second county courthouse. Both courthouses, Osceola and Blytheville, have physical structure issues that we can fix, we can patch, we can get it by for another year, 2 years, maybe 5 years. But how long are we going to be able to continue and maintain? How long are we going to let the drain go on?
I understand where the cost issue comes into play. There's 2 old buildings for this quorum court to have to maintain, and our population in Mississippi County is dropping. It used to be the second most populous county in the state, and we've lost population and have continued to lose population as agriculture has changed. We just don't need the population anymore. So you have to begin to ask the question, you know, do you need that much in square footage and trying to maintain 2 buildings? And now they're both 100 years old, and that is expensive. But I do think when you have an old structure that means as much to a community as this building means to Osceola and the residents of South Mississippi County, you have to look for ways to make it happen.
It's just a dire financial issue, and we can't afford to keep 2 courthouses open. The buildings were built over 100 years ago, and they were perfect at that time. Geography of our county, 100 years ago you went to the courthouse in a horse and carriage, and with technology and transportation improvements, it just doesn't serve a need anymore to have 2 county seats in one county. The population of our county has decreased from 84,000 in 1950 to 42,000 in the 2014 census, so less and less need for 2 county courthouses.
I think when they think of replacing a courthouse, they think of replacing the Blytheville courthouse. I don't think that they have the attachment for the building that we have for ours. Their attachment might be more on the Greyhound bus station or the Ritz Theater. Well, this is ours. This is what we love. And I don't think that they think about what this courthouse, what it means to us. And I think several of them maybe would change their mind if they really thought about it, if they stepped in our shoes.
It's history, it is our legacy, it's our signature, it's who we are. And you know, just because it's new doesn't mean it's better. And I know that times change. The only thing constant is change itself. And I know new buildings are more energy efficient, cheaper to operate. But if you don't know where you came from, you're not going to know where you're going, and you'll probably repeat your mistakes. And I just think that we need to hang on to some parts of history, whether it be federal or state or locally. It's not an economic or travel issue. It's emotional. It's an attachment. It's the anchor to our city.
You know, Mississippi County is at a point. We have come to a point, and we're reaching a point, if not today, tomorrow, if not tomorrow, in the future. We're coming to a point where we're going to have to deal with the 2 county courthouses, the 200-year-old buildings that we're having to deal with. And how do we deal with them? Do we really try to fix these buildings up? Do we try to hold on to the past? Or do we take a big, giant step into the future? And it's a very hard decision to make. There's a lot of emotions involved. There's a lot of sentiment involved. I know people have talked about the pep rallies that took place on the county courthouse steps, the marriages that took place in the county courthouse halls. Those are all very touching and very sentimental, and you've got to feel for those kind of people that they want to hold on to their identity, to their future, to their feelings. And our communities have very, very deep feelings. Both communities do, particularly Osceola. So at some point in time, the citizens are going to have to make a hard decision, and to make any effective change in a county courthouse, be it Mississippi County or any other in the state of Arkansas, it will take a vote of the people, and that's where this is going to end up coming to. We are trying to bring before the people a decision to be made about building a new courthouse in Blytheville. It's a courthouse that we are envisioning for the future. A courthouse that would carry us for the next 50 to 100 years. It's an expensive process. We're estimating the courthouse, the new one, to cost $18.4 million. It could easily rise above that. Most building projects do. But it's a hard decision to be made, because what are we going to do with the old building here in Blytheville? And the courthouse that we're envisioning building could possibly take care of the whole county eventually. We have the elected officials begging for more room, more place, more storage, more service. We're utilizing 3 or 4 off-site storage spaces for records that are very sensitive, very old, and they're not in climate-controlled situations. This new courthouse that we're projecting and that we're asking the people to vote on is a 56,000 square foot courthouse. So could eventually work for the whole county if the citizens decide that's what they want.
Osceola, again, the building is not as in much disrepair as the one in Blytheville. Osceola just simply does not have the traffic that Blytheville has. And we feel like that it's time to do something different. If we build a new courthouse in Blytheville, there shouldn't be any maintenance issues, major maintenance issues, for a long, long time. The courthouse we're looking at building in Blytheville is just a little over $18 million. Should serve us for 50 to 100 years.
There was a line item that you approved. Some of you have indicated to me that you didn't know you approved it when you did it, but you approved a line item for $150,000 sometime before the end of last year for capital outlay. I'm sure by pure coincidence, only 4 or 5 months later, $150,000 was the perfect price to purchase 5.65 acres from George and Karen Green here in Blytheville, which seems to be a piece of land that would accommodate, I guess now we know what. I hope that all of the county knows that my client, the city of Osceola, consists of progressive thinking leaders who represent their constituents and yours, and they are constituents of yours. They want to be partners in the progress in Mississippi County, not obstructionists. They don't want to see a city litigating against a county. This architecture firm was paid $26,000 only 2 months ago, and they've got quite a rendering already. I assume that there will be plans and other suggestions. I'm sure that by now they've done site surveys. I've heard numbers swirling around in the neighborhood of $15 million, and when I look at that, you know, as I was coming up here, I thought, boy, $15 million is a lot of money. When I look at that, I think, well, $15 million isn't going to touch that.
You know, the original idea was so large that the mayor of Osceola called it the Taj Mahal.
I was personally, and most everybody was against a $22 million courthouse if they'd have torn both down and built it right in the center of Osceola. That was extravagance. In this day and time, with computers and technology, we didn't need $22 million courthouse. And they unveiled that without the input at all from anybody, whether it was me or the quorum court members from the south end of the county, but they caught them off guard. They didn't know the land had been purchased, they didn't know the architect had been hired, and they unveiled it, and none of us caught us off guard. And that did not sit well, to be honest with you. And that's kind of what started the fight.
So that survey, and you reference we. Who's we? Because we didn't decide to use the survey. There were a few people decided to use that survey. A few people decided that we had to bail out on using the Burdette facility. We is not this group, because we were not involved.
Many of the justices from the south end of the county felt like they were not involved in that process. And so started asking, you know, who made the decisions? Why weren't we consulted? And so that kind of led to what ended up blowing up in the last year and a half. Quorum Court decided to go forward with this. They were not trying to consolidate, I want to be clear, they were not trying to consolidate the two county seats, okay? They were trying to build a new courthouse, and they were trying to locate that courthouse just south of Blytheville. It was a very large courthouse that they were planning. They would argue that it was so that they could bring all their storage and all their annex and all that together in one location. People in Osceola would argue it was designed that large in order to eventually close the Osceola courthouse and just go to one.
That rendition didn't come from nowhere. That rendition clearly took time and effort. Somehow or another, a $150,000 allocation made it into the budget that just magically met the Greens' price for a piece of land. Somehow or another, this has been evolving in a way that undermines the public's trust in the process. And if it's all done with the light of day, and if it's all done where, according to Hoyle, and an election is held, then that's what's great about this democracy. Somebody's going to win and somebody's going to lose, and that's okay. And goodness knows, as a lawyer in this district, there's nothing I'd love more than to see a courthouse like that anywhere in Northeast Arkansas. I think it's beautiful and wonderful. But it's public money, and how we get there does in fact matter.
Since the unveiling of the courthouse design, public reaction's been 95% of people are probably in favor of this, that they're excited, think that we need one courthouse, that financially we need to get rid of the two courthouses. And 5% of the people, let's save our buildings. When, you know, this is the heart of our downtown, this is the court square, this is, you know, part of our history, and and I agree. I sympathize with that. I hope that there's both buildings can be saved, that they'll be repurposed for those buildings, but they've been neglected for so many years that they're in such bad shape that it's going to take a lot of money from somewhere, some private source other than the county to maintain those buildings and refurbish those buildings.
I know that each one of you wants to do what's right for the county. I'm not suggesting otherwise in any way, shape, or form. I am simply suggesting there's only one way to get a new courthouse, and that's through an election process. And to the extent that there's a way out of this that involves cooperation rather than being antagonistic, I, for one, would certainly like to help find that, if we can.
They was going through with the plan. They had set a date for a special election for August 9th of 2016. And everything seemed to be moving forward. And then Osceola, the city of Osceola, decided, wait a minute. And so they retained counsel and filed suit to stop the election. Again, this is hearsay too. I was told that none of the circuit judges here wanted to really hold that hot potato. And so they brought a retired circuit judge, David Laser, to come and sit on the bench to hear this case. And he ended up agreeing with the city of Osceola that it was unlawful to do this plan. That 1901 law, the act that created the Northern Judicial District, also required that the funds and revenue raised in each judicial district only be used in that judicial district. So he enjoined the election on July 26th of 2016, stopped it cold. And Blauville appealed that to the Supreme Court. And on March 2nd of 2017, the Supreme Court ruled in the favor of Osceola. They said that indeed the Act of 1901 did forbid the mingling of revenue across that line. There's a road down by the landfill here called Red Line Road, and it divides the county right in half. And so the Supreme Court ruling saying that you cannot tax across that line meant that, you know, their particular plan couldn't stand. Right before the ruling, there was a great deal of tension between the North End and South End. There became quite a rift, and so an agreement, a resolution was drawn up by the Quorum Court to secure the support from the South End of the county for any future attempts at a courthouse.
Michael White took the lead. He's a Quorum Court member and chairman of the Finance Committee. We kind of got together and said, well, what can we do? And I don't speak for anybody else, but I think they kind of came to the idea that, yeah, maybe we don't need such a big courthouse. So the compromise was that, okay, you got the land, you can build your new courthouse, size it down, make it smaller, and also commit so much money a year to the ongoing maintenance of this courthouse here. I think it's $350,000, not a great deal of money, but they get their new courthouse, size it down, we get to keep ours, maintain it, but yet the staff will be a little bit less. So we all gave some and we all settled it.
Osceola Courthouse, I remember many, many times seeing, you know, that was a place where the old men would come up there, sit on the benches and just talk. I mean, it was like town hall. It's a place where you come together and visit. And I've seen that a little bit in Blauville, not quite so much. But, you know, the courthouses, they're dear to people. They really are, you know.
You go into that courthouse and you see the slate floors that were imported in, and there was a lot of people that donated money back in the day to build that facility, and it can't be replaced, and I don't want it replaced. And everything is not money. There's certain things in life that is more important than money, and many things in life that are more important than money. Family, God, country, and the Mississippi County Courthouse.
It's one of the most beautiful county courthouses in the state of Arkansas, and we're really proud of our courthouse. And I get to see it almost every day.
Like any family, we, you know, if someone picks on us, we'll all come together to defend North and South. But this is certainly not an issue that's been resolved. There's a lot of raw emotion still about this. It's still very, very sensitive, and it is not resolved. So stay tuned.
This program was made possible in part by a grant from the Arkansas Humanities Council, the Moving Image Trust Fund, the Arkansas Historic Preservation Program, an agency of the Department of Arkansas Heritage,